Have you ever wondered why anxiety seems to creep up so much around autism spectrum disorder? Yeah, me too. And this video is going to hopefully explain a little bit more of that in depth for you. Welcome to Autism, the driving factor of anxiety. Now, many of the things in anxiety and autism spectrum disorder can sometimes have a bit of a crossover. For example, meltdowns, shutdowns, kind of avoidance issues, they can all feel very similar and, to be honest, sometimes misdiagnosed because of this for so many people later on in life. I know this because this is what happened to me. I still suffer with anxiety, and I did get diagnosed with autism and ADHD as well as. But that crossover sometimes needs to have an explanation. You can't just say everything's anxiety related when you can take the medication, have the therapy, but it doesn't go away. Sometimes there's more to this statement. Now, if you look at a lot of the things in anxiety with autism spectrum disorder, there tends to be kind of a reason and then a reaction to it. What I mean by this is that some people may get overstimulated, they may need routine, and if they don't get that, that then also creates a crossover of fear. People fear what's going to happen next. People are going to fear the unknown, and that's only natural, especially for people with ASD. The first example of this is things like transitions. For people who don't have any kind of crossover or help or aid, timetables, anything that helps with a transition, say a transition at school, transition to work, even just transition to something like moving to a new house, going to a new place. It's something that needs to be explained, there needs to be a plan, and that then again creates fear. It's the fear of the unknown. This is what happens so much in children with autism spectrum disorder, and it creates anxiety. I see that in my own son when there isn't a plan in place. And to follow on from that, there's sensory overwhelm. Again, if you go to busy places, go to areas where you know that it's not going to be, shall we say, neurodivergent friendly, that sensory overload again will create a fear response. It's going to create a fight and flight. You don't want to be there anymore because it's going to create problems for yourself. And unfortunately, neurotypical people don't always see that. They think there's something just wrong or you need to sort yourself out. I've had it in plenty of times in supermarkets already with our son, where it's a case of we need to shut that child up. We've heard it, we've seen it, and trust me, sometimes we try our best to not react to it. But unfortunately, it exists out there, and many people, children and adults, don't have the proper support, or shall we say even times where there is times sometimes over here in the UK where they have a quiet hour, but that tends to be very early in the morning or very late in the evening. Unfortunately, again, there's not many times where neurodivergent gets accommodated for, shall we say. And very similar to the transitions, it's changes and expectations. If we expect something to happen and that changes, that can cascade into something much, much more. Again, it's anxiety, it's a fear response, it's a fight and flight. We don't know what then is going to happen next. I think part of the anxiety is control. We like to have control, but not in a possessive way, just control in a wanting to know what's next kind of way. We want security. Fear, the lack of control always leads to the same responses. You'll see this kind of pattern happening with every single time with all these examples that I've made. So as a person with autism, what do we do next? Well, if I'm being honest, in this past nearly 2 years that I've been diagnosed with this now, and it's been many years obviously before, and I was born with it, it's not something that you just gradually get, but I will say that there's things that you start learning to adopt when you get the validation that you need. And if you haven't got it yet, I honestly and sincerely hope that you do get it. And I'm not saying everybody who's undiagnosed doesn't have the validation to say that they feel like they have it. If you feel like you have it, then you know that you need these different kind of changes and your brain works differently to start with. So I would say the 3 practical steps to this hopefully becoming a little bit better is environment, language, and support strategy. What I mean by this is that when we have an environment that's more suitable for us, and that means that we don't go out in times where we know it's going to be busy, we don't go in times where we know that there's going to be people there that's potentially going to set off our anxiety, around environments where people maybe have had drink or smoke or they're more rowdy, you know, these environments happen and I've been around them myself, and sometimes they've been stimulating environments and sometimes they've been the complete opposite and I want to escape environments. And I think that's also moving on to the language part of it. You need to kind of get that point across. Don't be afraid to say no. Do not be afraid to say this is too much for me, I need out. And the people who are around you that don't support you in them times, honestly, to start with, we're never friends and we're never family. Not that cared about you 100% anyway, because to be honest, everybody has their own survivorship bias. Everybody has their kind of way that they think the world should work, and if it doesn't work around their lens sometimes, some people unfortunately just can't seem to adapt to that. And if they don't want to listen to you, then honestly, you don't need to waste your energy on them. And a support strategy to me is kind of like a what to do, a get out of jail card, if you want to say. You know, what do we do in them environments? Where do we go? What happens? What kind of aids do we use? If it's busy, do we put our earphones in? If it's too overwhelming, do we take ourselves out of that environment? You know, maybe if you're in a supermarket, you need to go and sit in the car for 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe it's just a case of you have to do this thing another day. Maybe order it online. You have to try and work around your own energy levels, you know. At the moment, I'm going through a lot of fatigue. I've even been kind of referred to the ME clinic to see if it's anything further because of that, because the fatigue has only got worse and worse. And I think that again leads to burnout. The whole point of this kind of supporting yourself, to give yourself the aid and support that you need, not what everybody else needs. Make sure that you put yourself first in these environments. And I will say, as a person who has suffered with anxiety and depression for quite a long time now, and I'm going to make another video on this around medication and things as well. If anybody's interested, then make sure you follow along for that. But it's still a factor. It's always going to be a factor. I've been through CBT through several times. I've been through a community mental health team. I'm not afraid to admit this. This is part of life for me. And unfortunately, it feels like nothing has ever got better, shall we say. It's just sometimes the acceptance of what I can and can't do and what to do next in those environments. I always say every time that I'm thankful that I've got such a supporting wife, but I understand there's a lot of people out there that don't have the support networks. They don't have people around them that care. But this is me screaming out to you as much as I can. Put yourself first. Put your child first. They need the help and support. That's the only way that you're going to get through this in life. You didn't ask for the way that the world is made right now to be this way. You know, whether it's the economy, politics, like the way that everything is accustomed to be in shops, in pubs, in restaurants. You didn't ask for that. That's just the way it is. And unfortunately, it will always fit the mass audience. But that doesn't mean that you have to suffer. That doesn't mean that you have to try and adapt to this all the time. You can do what's necessary to make you happy, more manageable in life as well as. But that's enough about me and my experience. Tell me about your experience. Have you had anxiety at all a long time through having autism as well as? It's about a 45% statistic, I believe it is, of a comorbidity with a mental health condition with autism, and I believe crossover with ADHD as well. This was recently done on UK statistics, I think in 2024, something like that. I'm sure that if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. Otherwise, I'll try and put a link in the description about it. But tell me your experiences. Tell me if you've had it. Tell me what you've gone through and what measurements you've tried to make as well to make this difference. And if you enjoyed this video, please follow along and like it as well as, and subscribe. There's going to be plenty more content like this around memes, reactions and actions and experience of autism and ADHD as well. So thank you very much for watching. I've been AUDHDAD, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.